Hey guys, it's Danny. Today I'm gonna show you some of my, if not all of my variegated orchids. Yeah, I don't have a lot of them. We don't have a lot of variegated orchids in the hobby if you compare them to the other very popular houseplants like philodendrons and nowadays even anthuriums and alocasias. I've seen a whole bunch of houseplants being variegated nowadays. With orchids, we don't seem to have as many, did you notice? And considering how many varieties there are, species and hybrids, and for how long we've had these plants in cultivation, you'd think we would have more variegated orchids, right? Well, we don't for whatever reason. And these are all the variegated orchids I currently have. Not too many, right? Before we start the topic and I'll tell you more about the variegated orchids that I have and all of that, don't forget to give this video a like if you end up enjoying it, and why not subscribe? I post multiple times a week and it's completely free. But if you're feeling a little extra and you can, do consider further supporting the channel by becoming a member, checking out the affiliate links down below, checking out the merch, or using the super thanks option below my videos. Right, so first and foremost, let's start with the older variegated orchids that I had, because I know some of you will ask, some of you are older on my channel. Well, I kind of lost them along the way, whether due to the leca experiments, whether even thrips. The thing is though, I do notice that variegated orchids do seem to be more finicky than their totally green counterparts. Now, I have two new orchids here. Not sure how they will grow, but I can tell you from experience that at least the variegated cattleya that I used to have, oh brother, it was slow and the setback was real. It was not growing very fast. And even though some variegated orchids don't seem to be all that sensitive, I mean, let's not get the Phalaenopsis. Let's get this one. This is a Dendrobium aphyllum. This guy is not really sensitive at all, but he doesn't have much variegation, to be fully honest. That cattleya, that one was quite variegated. So in my opinion, variegated orchids do seem to grow slower or just are more sensitive than their green counterparts. And considering the fact that most of the times I grow orchids for their flowers, not really for their foliage, I'm personally not all that interested in variegation, although I love it. I really, truly love it. But with orchids, it always seems that variegation is always linear like this, or marginal. Either it's marginal or sometimes it can be like in the middle of the leaf. It's never like patches, right? Think about monsteras. You have the marble effect, you have the sectors that are completely white or variegated. You can even have a half moon, like a half white, half green leaf. With orchids, you don't get that. All of the orchids that I ever had a linear, I would say, variegation. And to my knowledge, there isn't an orchid that looks more like a monstera. Let me just show you what I mean in case you missed the video with my monstera. There she is, she's growing. She developed this leaf in my care and now she's working on this one. She's growing fast. We're gonna need more space. But yeah, if you can see on this monstera, we have this marbleness, this splotchiness, and also some patches that are completely variegated. We have nothing like this in the orchid kingdom to my knowledge. And I'm not referring to mottled leafed orchids such as Paphiopedilums or some Phalaenopsis like the Pulcherrima, the Schilleriana. No, those have a natural pattern or mottling on their leaves. It's not a mutation. This is a mutation. This plant should not look like this. And all of these, they should not look like this. This is what I'm talking about. So not jewel orchids, which are naturally very beautiful, or slipper orchids or things of the sorts. So except for this type of variegation, we don't really have much in the orchid world, which is a shame. The good part is though, it is very stable. Hold on, let me put the monstera back. So you know how with other houseplants, sometimes you can have one completely reverting to green, which is the default, the normal? Well, with orchids, it doesn't happen. The only orchid that sometimes it happens with is the Neofinetia. And from my understanding, this is mainly due to environment. So you can bring back the variegation in many cases, maybe not all of them, but with all of the other orchids, the variegation doesn't completely disappear, to my knowledge and in my kind of limited and short experience with variegated orchids. So it's not the most spectacular variegation, but at least it doesn't go away, which is great. And also the color of the variegation, again in my experience, it's always a little bit yellow. I mean, I had some philodendrons that had a pure white variegation, not that monstera, other plants. Pure white variegation. I have never seen an orchid with pure white variegation. It's always a little yellow, a little green, a little buttery, and sometimes even completely yellow. But of course, I do not have all of the orchids in the world. I don't know all of the orchids in the world. So if you have more examples to tell me about, leave them in a comment and I'll check them out. But yeah, from my experience, I don't think you can find easily an orchid that has white leaves or something of the sorts. But this doesn't mean that variegated orchids are not pretty. I think they are, and I think if you have a few, if you find a few at a decent price, I think they're worth a shot. Keeping in mind, they might be a little bit more sensitive and they might grow slower than their green counterparts. So with that said, let me just show you the variegated orchids that I have. Let's start with the new ones that you don't know. Here I have a variegated Dendrobium. This is one of my favorites though, it's Dendrobium kingianum. Now in one of my older videos, I told you that personally, not the hugest fans of Dendrobiums as a whole. I know there are many different Dendrobiums, but if I make a statistic, I'd rather have Cattleyas or Oncidiums than Dendrobiums. However, there are some particular Dendrobiums that I am such a huge fan of, that I'm gonna try to collect as much as I can whenever I have the possibility. And these are the Australian Dendrobiums. You guys have the most amazing Dendrobiums in the world, pretty much, in my opinion. At least I love them the most. It's not very easy for me to find them here where I am. So wherever I find a kingianum cross or the kingianum or anything that comes from Australia, I am on it. Do the Lutorias come from Australia too? Oh my goodness. I don't know for sure now. I'm gonna put it on the screen. If they are from Australia as well, those are the only ones that I'm not a fan of, which is weird because they're hot growers. But these, and also Tetragonum type, and there's another one that I really want. I forgot the name. All of these guys are absolutely amazing, and there are so many beautiful crosses with the kingianum. It's not even funny. I mean, I have the Zip Zinger, which it didn't come with a tag, but I know it for 10 years. I think it's Zinger variety, but it's a Zip Dendrobium. I found it this year. I love it. I've been looking for it for 10 years. 10 years. And now I have a variegated kingianum. Now I'm very curious to see if it's actually the Variota and not the kingianum. There is a way to tell, but at least it's variegated. It is beautiful. It looks like it had some other flower spikes in the past. And yeah, it ticks a lot of the boxes. I do want to have more of these Dendrobiums in my collection. Very hard to come by. Whenever I see them though, I try to purchase a few. But those beautiful kingianum crosses are just not available yet to me. I'm hoping they will come in the future because they're my favorites. They're so beautiful. Right, next up, here we have a Cygnodus or Catasetum type. It's a Cygnodus. It's the Wine Delight variegated. I mean, of all orchids to be variegated, I was not expecting a Catasetum type to be variegated, but here we have it. Again, from Secret Garden, and as you can see, the variegation is quite striking. It's quite beautiful on this plant. Now, it is almost completely mature, and it's the middle of summer here. Summer will end in November here. So I was seriously considering to repot it because, yeah, the potting, it's not even a mix, it's sphagnum moss. The moss is already broken down. I don't know what type of moss nurseries use, but it's definitely not New Zealand sphagnum moss. It breaks down so fast. I have cyanobacteria on top. But the thing is, if we repot Catasetum orchids, which have a very specific growth pattern, it's not gonna end well. This orchid has grown its roots for the season. It will not grow any new roots anymore. Maybe a few branches here and there, but from the cane, nothing new until next year, spring. You can imagine that if I disturb the roots now, the orchid will not benefit from water and nutrients for almost a year. I'm gonna keep it like this. It might start to produce a new growth that will mature by winter here. and then it will season to my climate. For now, it's absolutely not seasoned, but I'm not going in there to repot it. This guy, no. So with Catasetums, remember, if you receive a Catasetum that is already almost grown like this, do not repot, do not do anything. I mean, even if the roots are not the happiest, it's okay, let them be, let them still feed this new growth to completely, fully mature until the leaves fall. Then when it goes into dormancy, that doesn't matter. But while it's still green like this and it's done growing pretty much, do not repot it, because it's not even going to be set back. It's probably not gonna make it, like this particular growth. I don't know if it's gonna fully mature and make it. So yeah, sadly this guy will not get repotted this year, and I can't stand it. But yeah, it's beautiful. I'm hoping it will bloom. I mean, it looks mature enough. Right, so this is a Phalaenopsis that I do have for a while. This is a very popular Phalaenopsis. It's the Sogo Vivian Variegated, and if I'm not mistaken, it is the very first popular Phalaenopsis that is variegated. I mean, that you can actually find in some flower shops. I never found it, but I know many of you did. And it looks like this. Now, I've had this one twice. I can tell you that both of these times this orchid did not grow as vigorous and as big and as fast as all of the other mini Phalaenopsis that I have. It looks beautiful, it's just not growing as fast. It's not very not vigorous, but it's growing slow. The flowers though are not variegated. They don't have any color disruption. I'm not sure about these guys because I didn't see them in bloom, but typically with variegated orchids you will have normal flowers, not like with color breaks or anything of the sorts, or with distinct patterns of sorts. It has nothing to do with the flowers, it's only a foliage thing. So this one looks exactly like the Sogo Vivian flower-wise, but the foliage, as you can see, it's quite beautiful. Now in the past, it did have some leaves with more green than variegation, but each leaf seems to be a little bit different. I have a little bit of thrips damage on mine, but it's sprayed, it's thrips free for the past almost month. Guys, I'm so happy. But you can see the damage here, but the damage is not related to the variegation. Next up, this is a Neofinetia falcata. It's a variegated variety, and this type of orchid never reblooms for me, probably because I don't have the greatest climate for it. It's too hot, so all it does is grow vegetatively, but it doesn't rebloom. So personally, you know, I stopped buying them. I think this is the only one that I have left. Thrips really did a number on these ones, and yeah, the whole oil combination kind of really got to them. They're not a very, let's say, robust orchid. They have very tight leaves, so whenever you do treatments, there is a high chance whatever treatment you do will get stuck in between the leaves, and it will either rot the orchid, or if you're using too much oil, it will damage the leaf and so on. So I don't have Neofinetias left other than this one, and I don't intend to buy any, but this one at least is variegated. Now, there is a whole community of Neofinetia growers, and I do believe in Japan there is a whole tradition with this orchid, so definitely this is the type of orchid that can absolutely be the only orchid in your collection. It's just not meant for my climate, so I personally don't have enough of them, and I don't think I'm gonna buy anytime soon. Maybe when I'm gonna move to, I don't know, maybe a room that I can climate control more, and even so, I don't know if Neofinetias are my thing. And the last orchid that I'm going to show you is a Dendrobium aphyllum, which did not bloom this year because I kept it in one of the IKEA cabinets. Because of the thrips, Dendrobiums are magnets, and it was too hot and it didn't go through the winter rest, and it didn't bloom. It just went straight to vegetative growth. What to do? This year though, I'm keeping it outside. This is the type of orchid that is deciduous, it loses its leaves, and it blooms once a year in the spring after a winter rest, which theoretically should be cooler. It's not the perfect orchid for IKEA cabinets. It really isn't. Because of the grow lights, things tend to stay a little too hot, and it doesn't get the cool down it needs, so it's not gonna bloom. This year though, I sprayed it, and I also used the stick insecticide and we're doing good so far. I don't see thrips on it so far, which is amazing because Dendrobiums, oh brother. So as you can see, the variegation on this one, not very showy, right? Well, it shows a little bit if you look up close. And the thing that I like about it is that it can get a reddish pinkish tinge to it in brighter light. Some orchids that have variegation can have that red tint due to the anthocyanin pigment being produced in higher light. They don't all do this. This particular Dendrobium does, and it's quite pretty. But speaking about Dendrobiums, these types that are pendant, they're my second favorite Dendrobiums, right after the Australian ones. So I do enjoy having a few pendant Dendrobiums, not too many. I have the Parisi, I have an anosmum, I have this guy, the Parisi is in bloom, at least him. And they're just wonderful, they're beautiful. But there aren't way too many. There aren't too many varieties. So yeah, I'm looking more for the Australian ones. Righty, so these are all the variegated orchids that I have. Not too many, right? Considering the hundreds of orchids that I don't have many variegated orchids. There aren't all that many. What to do? If you have some variegated orchids you'd like to recommend us, put them down below in a comment, and if I ever see them, I'll get them. I'm looking for like pretty robust orchids. So far in my experience, variegated orchids, not the strongest. Remember I used to have an oncidium, the Catherine Zogue? That one never grew. It never did anything. Didn't even mature a pseudobulb. It was so weak, so weak. I don't know if that particular individual had an issue or it was because it was a variegated variety. The normal Catherine Zogue, no issue for me, but that one did not grow. Not a mature single pseudobulb. It had roots, but still did not pull through, and it didn't have that abundance of roots that these guys can make. Anyway, so let me know if you've noticed this with variegated orchids or it's just me. Maybe I had some issues like with Fusarium, who knows? This was a long time ago, so it might have been some Fusarium, who knows? But for now, yeah, these are the ones that I have, and I hope I gave you some details about variegated orchids if you're interested in them. I absolutely do not think you should overpay for them. So again, check how much the normal variety costs in comparison to the variegated version. If it's just a little bit more expensive, like 2-3 euros, I mean, sure, why not? But if it's like 20 euros more expensive than the green version, it's not worth it, is it? I mean, does it look like a Monstera? It doesn't. It's just linear variegation. It's not even white, one. And second, it might even be less robust than the normal green version, right? So anyway, these orchids, we're growing them for the flowers, not necessarily for the leaves. So don't overpay for these guys is my advice. In my experience, they're just not worth it. They look pretty, but I'm always afraid that one of these guys will just be so sensitive that I'm gonna lose it in the end. So no need to overpay. Right, so this has been it on variegated orchids. If I find anything interesting in the future, I might give it a go, but if it's too expensive, no. And I love variegation, but nope, I would not spend my money on variegated plants if they're majorly more expensive than the green version. I'd rather have the green version with flowers, you know? So yeah, that's my opinion on things, and I hope this video was useful. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today, and with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye!